Hey guys, welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey guys, welcome to Fast Keto. This episode is brought to you by Ketogenic Girl, and if you haven't picked up a copy of my brand new cookbook, Keto Essentials, head to Amazon today. It actually is 31% off. It's on sale right now, and it is everything that you need to know from a beginner to being advanced keto about getting the optimal results out of your ketogenic lifestyle. It explains everything about why keto works, how to test, how to interpret results, and lots of keto hacks to get you results quicker. It also has 150 of my most favorite decadent, rich, delicious keto recipes that are so nourishing and are so much fun to cook. Some of my favorite recipes, like my keto pad thai, fettuccine alfredo, some of my favorite desserts like keto cookie dough. There are so many delicious treats and ways that you can make keto work for you. A lot of easy to find ingredients. I don't put a lot of hard to find ingredients in the recipes, and everything you can find at most supermarkets. I do a lot of traveling and I'm able to make these recipes just with basic ingredients from the store. So lots of delicious, tasty recipes. It's on sale, 31% off. Head to Amazon and look up Keto Essentials and get the cookbook. Leave me a review. I would love to hear what you think. And also tag me if you post any photos of the recipes. It's my favorite thing to see your creations based on my recipes. So that's Keto Essentials on Amazon. Please listen to the end of this podcast for all disclaimers. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be any kind of medical advice, as I am not a qualified care professional, just a food blogger who absolutely loves food and loves health. Today's episode is so exciting. I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. I talked to Ximena DelaSerna. She is an incredible fertility, PCOS, hormone expert, and we had an absolute blast talking on the episode today. She explains all of her advice if you have PCOS, if you have fertility issues, you're trying to conceive, and provides so much incredible information on your cycle and how everything relates back to keto. And we talked about so many really important topics, great information. And I just want to mention that she actually has an English website, which is functionalfemaleforce.com/help. And in there, you'll be able to find her website information if you want to read more about it. But Ximena is a nutritional therapist and digital entrepreneur. She's from Colombia, and she was diagnosed with PCOS when she was 13 years old. And she found that reading and learning about genetics, female hormones, nutrition, and graduating as a nutritional therapist put her on the path to discovering the role of hormones, fertility, and the connection to insulin resistance and keto. After only 7 months following a low-carb, high-fat lifestyle, she was completely clear of PCOS after 2 decades of suffering, to her doctor's astonishment. Today, she runs Functional Female Force Online, which is also her Instagram. She has a YouTube channel where she's helping dozens of people and women overcome PCOS, diabetes, hormonal imbalances, and optimize their DNA expression through what she refers to as nutrigenetics and nutritional therapy. She also teaches a scientific fertility method that helps any woman be in control and achieve optional fertility and fertility health without drugs. So we had such a blast recording this podcast. I hope that you enjoy listening to it. So tune in, and here is the podcast. Ximena, it's so great to have you here with me today chatting. It was so fun. For those of you who don't know, I got to meet Ximena in Mallorca a couple weeks ago, and I'm still living off the buzz of that trip because it was so incredible.
It's true.
We got to meet in person at the conference, and I just want to introduce Ximena, saying Ximena sometimes, but it's Ximena, correct?
Well, actually, I'm surprised that you know how to pronounce the Spanish X, because it depends on where you're from. If you're from South America, you will call me Ximena. I'm from South America. But if you are from the north of Spain, you will call me Ximena with the X. So it's actually correct in both ways.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
And I'm actually called both ways. Like most of the people at university used to call me Ximena, and the side of uni calls me Ximena. So I go both.
I'm really resisting making a dirty joke right now as hard as I can.
No, I know. Miss X.
But yeah, it was so fantastic. Ximena and I got to meet at the Keto Ladies conference put on by Low Carb Universe. And it was one of the best keto conferences I've ever been to. And as Hannah said, she was one of the organizers. It was really a retreat style. And we all had such an incredible time. Am I right?
Absolutely, Vanessa. It was, like you say, I'm still running on the bus from it. Like, I loved it so much. I haven't stopped talking about it to everyone I meet. It's like everyone needs to go to that event. I don't know how the one in November is going to be. It's a different kind of style. I'm sure it's going to be amazing as well. But this one was something special, right?
I think the low carb one in November has some great men coming as well. But there's something, like you said, special about just having all women together, just focusing in really on, what are the women's issues, the things that are really important just to us as women. And there's also so much like estrogen and female bonding and stuff that you can't really explain. And also just when you get a bunch of really incredible people together who are all so positive. And if you haven't been to the conference, again, you have to check out Low Carb Universe put on by Hannah. If you know Hannah and Bitta from Instagram, and check out Low Carb Conference because they do have a great one coming up. I think it's in November in Mallorca as well. And it's just going to feature a bunch more experts and stuff. So anyway, diving into today, just as you called in, I was making my, I can't call it what I did call it earlier, but my Keto Girl coffee, because the other name is
it's copyrighted.
But you were asking what I put in it, and I just made fresh coffee, and I just put in a tablespoon of coconut oil and just blend it in. That's all. I keep it super simple. What about you?
Oh, girl, I love it. Actually, I had one after my breakfast/lunch. It's my first meal of the day, but it was already midday. And I actually made this one very similar to yours. I made it with coffee and freshly ground coffee, and I made it with double cream. I put it in that blitz thing. How do you call it? That blender?
Yes.
And then it became super frothy. And sometimes I like to put some maca in it, maca powder. Really good as well.
Oh, interesting.
Like caramel taste.
So
I love it. Absolutely.
Ximena, I'm so excited to talk to you today because one of the things that I love the most about getting to meet you and see you speak in Mallorca was your passion, because I could really feel how passionate you are about hormonal health and women's health and fertility and the healing power of keto. And it was so cool. You definitely had one of the best presentations at the conference, like I was telling you, and everyone was just so into your energy and your passion, and it just comes out of you, comes out of your pores. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, maybe you can just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Vanessa. So yeah, like you said in the introduction, I'm Ximena DelaSerna and I'm Colombian, being born Colombian, but have been living in the UK for the past 11 years. And it was when I was 13, so over 20 years ago, that I was diagnosed actually with androgenic alopecia. Obviously, that is a symptom. That is not really an illness. And that's something that we have to understand, because many women write to me all the time saying, I'm losing my hair in bunches. What do I do to stop my hair loss? What shampoo do I use? Or what vitamin am I lacking? And I go, well, first of all, there is no shampoo that you can use to stop that. And that is actually a symptom. Unless you attack or you address the root cause, you're never gonna get rid of the hair loss and all the things that are happening. Because I'm sure that if you're having hair loss, it's not the only thing that's happening in your life.
Alopecia, you had alopecia at 13. How much hair loss did you have?
Absolutely. 50%. I almost lost all my hair.
Wow.
50%. It was absolutely incredible. And I was diagnosed with the alopecia, but they never looked at the reason why I was having alopecia. And it's incredible, but it took them until I was 27 to actually say, listen, you've got PCOS. And I was like, so I've been like all these years, I already lost my hair. I was having terrible acne. Those are all symptoms of PCOS. I was having problems with my periods. I was having loads of problems that are related to PCOS, but it took them that many years and 3 different countries to actually diagnose it, because I was tested and saw doctors in Colombia, in Spain, and in the UK, and nobody was able to ever tell me that I had PCOS. Once I learned that I had PCOS at 27, then everything started to make sense. Actually, there was a root cause that I could look at, and I started to find, I come from a family of doctors. I've always been very, I'm kind of like a bookworm. I've always been into books, reading, finding, and I started researching and really trying to find the cause of this. I remember that one of the doctors that actually diagnosed my PCOS told me that if I had family of diabetes, type 2 diabetes in my family, that was a link. And that actually resonated with me because it is in my family. My dad had it, and I say had it because he doesn't have it anymore, type 2 diabetes, after going keto. My grandmother had it. Unfortunately, she died before we knew any of this. But I thought if there is a relationship between type 2 diabetes and PCOS, then the root must be around something to do with my metabolism. And that's how I started researching, reading about genetics, about hormones and everything. And eventually I decided to study nutritional therapy. And then I graduated, and then I found the real reason of the PCOS. And you heard it all. I gave the whole talk during Keto Ladies about what really is PCOS, why it's so misdiagnosed. Doctors, I'm not attacking doctors, but they really are not at the front of the new research that shows what PCOS is. And they are failing in actually educating their patients on what PCOS is. So this is what brought me here, and this is what brings me here, because I want to educate women on what really is PCOS and what they can do to cure it, because it is curable. And that's the first thing they tell you when you go to the doctors is it is uncurable. Actually, it is curable.
That's so incredible. And like so many other diseases and conditions that we thought for so long were irreversible, it's so great to know that PCOS is one of those. So can you define for us what exactly PCOS is and what are maybe the top symptoms of it?
Absolutely. So what PCOS is really, it's, let's say in just a few words, it's a lack of ovulation. So what happens to you is you start having symptoms. You start losing your hair in bunches. You start having bald patches. You start having cystic acne. You might have problems with overweight. You might be overweight, and there is no diet in the world that will take that weight away. You might starve yourself and maybe lose a couple of pounds. But then after you stop the dieting and starving yourself, then everything comes back and even more. You might have dark patches on your skin, especially at the back of your neck, and at the inside of your elbows and the back of your knees. You might have facial hair and body hair in parts and in a very deep color that is not common in women. So women, we all have hair everywhere. And women, we have our face covering like fuzz, but it's fuzz. It's something that is not visible really to the naked eye. But when you start seeing those hairs and it starts resembling a soft beard or something like that, that is another symptom of PCOS. So at the end, what it is a collection of symptoms that start to make you look a little bit like a man. So you start losing kind of like your female features and you start looking more like a man. Obviously, you're never gonna look like a man. You're not gonna be like a dude walking around. But what I try to say is like you start seeing things that are not normal in women. And so that's it. And the cause of that is the lack of ovulation. The lack of ovulation, it's I was explaining it, you saw it in my talk in the Keto Ladies. When you don't ovulate, you have an excess of testosterone because you're not ovulating. And the fact that you have an excess testosterone makes you not ovulate. So it's a vicious circle. You don't ovulate, then you have more testosterone. Because you have more free testosterone, you then don't ovulate, and etc., etc., etc. And the cause of that non-ovulation, when it is actually PCOS and there is no other reason, congenital reason to have high androgens, and when I talk about androgens, I'm talking about male hormones, then the cause of that is the excess insulin. Because the excess insulin stimulates the production of free testosterone. Free testosterone is testosterone that is not bound, and therefore is just there in your body, breaking havoc. It's just making your body a wreck, and it makes you not ovulate. So that's actually the reason behind PCOS, is the excess insulin.
So how did you kind of come to keto, and what changes did you make? How did you first find out about it? And then, how quickly did you start seeing changes?
I love that you asked me this, Vanessa, because that's one of the things that when I tell my patients, they look at me like, you're a crazy woman. And it's absolutely amazing, because what I tell them is you could start seeing results as far as 2 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
It's absolutely amazing. This is how badly your body wants to be healthy, Vanessa. Like me, for example, I was with PCOS for 20 years. So my body was for 20 years, day in, day out, attacked by the PCOS. And yet, after 20 years of constant war and battle, my poor body, after 2 weeks of addressing the symptom, the root, which was the insulin, after only 2 weeks, I was already, that is how badly your body wants to be healthy, that in 2 weeks it's able to reverse a 20-year-old
It's amazing,
damage.
really. It is, yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
I have so many women on my program who tell me that it's the first thing that has ever worked for them. A lot of times they're talking about weight loss, because that's what, as women, we focus a lot on weight loss. But the weight loss is happening because of the healing that's happening. And they say, I've tried every single thing in the world, and this is the first thing that has worked for me. And not only that, but like you said, quickly. Like it doesn't, for some people, it takes longer for sure, but people start seeing even just some symptom relief very quickly.
Absolutely. For me, it was very, very quick on the acne. Like my acne was so bad, Vanessa. And you met me already and in person.
Well, you have beautiful skin.
I don't have
you
acne anymore. Will you say that I have acne? No. Absolutely. Grace. I've never had it, Vanessa. I always had very, very inflammatory, absolutely painful acne. And that acne went away probably in a 50% in only 2 weeks. And that was the first thing that I saw. And I thought, I must be doing something right, because this is going away and it's never happened in my entire life. Yeah.
So that was kind of the first sort of symptom relief that you had. And how did you find keto, and what did you start doing?
So I found keto because I started, as I told you, I was researching so much about everything. And then I decided to study nutritional therapy. And when I was studying nutritional therapy and when I was studying all about genetics, one of the things that got my attention the most was epigenetics, which is when the human genome was finally all revealed, that we finally found out the whole of the human genome. Scientists realized that they had more questions than answers, because they realized that just by looking at your genome, they couldn't say whether you were going to have green or blue eyes just by looking at your genes. What that means is that just by the fact that you have the blue eyes gene or the brown eyes gene, it doesn't mean that you're going to express it. So it doesn't mean that you're going to have blue eyes. It doesn't mean that you're going to have brown eyes. You might have, I don't know, pink eyes for what I know. But that's what they discovered, that they couldn't tell what you were going to develop just because you had those genes in your genetic makeup. And that's when epigenetics was born. Epigenetics is the science that looks at the things that switch your genes on and off. Many scientists say that only 95% of people have an actual unavoidable mistake or error in their DNA that cannot be avoided, and they will express that problem no matter what. But even some scientists, they say that it's up to 98% of people are free of that. So it's only 3% of the population that will have a gene that is faulty. The rest of us, we should live disease-free lives until the day we die. Meaning that all these illnesses that we have nowadays, that all these adults taking several prescription drugs nowadays, have had these genes switched on by something that has happened to them or that they're doing to themselves. That's what epigenetics looks at the things outside in your environment, meaning the things that you eat mainly, that will switch on and off your genes. Because food is not only fuel. We tend to think about food as fuel. It's just something that I eat so I can continue living. No, food is also a messenger that is charged of DNA information. So the food you eat is actually bringing DNA information or genetic information to your DNA, and it's altering it. And when I learned that is when I learned what PCOS was really, and that, okay, I might have that gene in my genetic makeup because my family are all very carb sensitive. My family, if they don't look after what they're eating, they develop type 2 diabetes. So that means that I was sensitive to that. When I realized that, it was the moment that like the bulb switched on in my head. And I said, well, if this is the reason why I developed PCOS, I can switch off that gene by going off of the thing that's triggering it. And the thing that's triggering it is the high insulin. And the high insulin is caused by the carbohydrates. All my family have it. I do have it, and as soon as I remove it, then it went away. And that's how I realized that that keto and the low carb living, plus the rest of my protocol that I developed afterwards, so I could help more women, was the answer to PCOS. And I don't have it nowadays.
That's amazing. Congratulations on being such a health advocate for yourself and for being your own, doctor. I mean, I agree with you. I think there are some wonderful doctors out there, but unfortunately, the current paradigm that we have for health is more disease care. It's, looking at symptoms and then proclaiming what those symptoms together mean. Oh, you have this condition, you have that condition, but what is the actual cause? And so much of it is rooted in our diet. I have the same thing in my family. My grandfather died of type 2 diabetes. And my brother has epilepsy and my father from vertigo. And when I started researching this, I was like, these are all connected to metabolic syndrome, and obviously I
Absolutely.
have it too, it's when it runs in your family, you have those predispositions. So I really have a similar family background to you. Now, what changes did you make? So you started researching epigenetics, and that kind of turned the light bulb on for you. And then you found something about PCOS and keto. And then did you start doing a low carb diet first or keto diet?
It was actually interesting because first I discovered that it was the carbs that I was creating it, or that was like my light moment. And then I didn't know yet about the existence of keto diet. That was funny. That's how I found about it. Because then I started to suspect that it was the carbohydrates that I was sensitive to. Then I started my research, and then I started to talk to some of my professors in the nutritional therapy area and everything. And someone mentioned something about low carb diet. Someone started to mention something about Atkins, which I kind of like remember from the 90s. And then it was one of the professors that mentioned, have you ever heard about keto? And I said, about what? And then I started to research more about that. He gave me a few books. He pointed me in a few directions. And then I realized that everything that I was suspecting, that reducing carbs in my diet was going to do me well, it was all already there. There were a lot of people doing it, and I've never heard about it. So I started to go back, and I found people talking about keto from back in 2002. And I was like, what? Where was this? Like, where was this? I found even articles in some worldwide newspapers back from 2005, newspapers and scientific papers, talking about the benefits of low carb for PCOS. I was like, man, I just realized something that it was already known. Like, I haven't discovered this. This already is a thing. So that was all I needed. I jumped in and I said, from tomorrow, I'm not eating more carbs. And it was quite amazing as well, because I'm into strength training. And as a weightlifter, if you know the diet of a weightlifter is basically carbohydrates like crazy. I was eating 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day.
That's the average consumption for most people who are on so-called, healthy, high carb, no fat diet is like anywhere from 200 to 400. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I thought that was the healthiest in the world, because it was all fruit and all like, oh, I'm so healthy. I'm eating so much fruit. Yeah, screw that.
I went to see this naturopath in Vancouver when I used to live there. And he used to say that most people that he saw, they had something known as like health book and diet book syndrome or something, where you read so many things on health because you're trying to be as healthy as possible. And I always say, like, I did every single thing from being a vegan, raw foodist, juicing and smoothies and everything, that you actually just get so twisted around because you're trying so hard to be healthy. And then all along you're doing what you think is healthy, what media and everyone is telling you is the healthiest thing. And it's so ironic that you're doing like the worst thing for yourself, eating all day long.
The worst thing.
You're mentioning that as ketoers, a lot of times we focus on getting the best possible quality of food. And I remember reading a statistic several years ago saying that our great grandparents, early 1900s and 30s and 40s, used to spend 80 to 90% of their income that they used for, household spending on food, and maybe only 10 to 20% of that on drugs. And now we spend 20% on food because the food is so cheap, it's so subsidized with all this garbage, and we spend 80% of our income on drugs. So if you're going to pay for it one way or the other, you're going to either pay for it at the supermarket, or you're going to pay for it at the drugstore, at the pharmacy. So
yeah. That's super interesting that you say that. I actually, this is by chance. This was not prepared, but I do have those numbers in front of me. The United States only spends 6.5% of their income in food. And the United Kingdom is 8.7%.
Yeah.
We don't spend anything in food.
Yeah.
Compared to what you just said, 80 to 90%.
Yeah, I'd have to pull up the exact article to know the precise numbers, but it was just that 80-20 flip to me that really stood out in my mind. So if people, I know budgeting is difficult, and we're very budget conscious. My husband and I save like beasts. So I know all about, having a budget and being financially responsible so you can, have a good future, financially secure. But you're going to pay for it either, I look sometimes at people's, like my parents', bathroom cupboard, you open the door and it's all drugs, and they're relatively healthy individuals, but the food quality, really, really has to be emphasized over just saving a little bit at the supermarket, because we vote with our money. And the more we purchase those things, the more they're going to be available to us. I just want to go back to, the changes that you first made. So did you just quit sugar, and kind of, if you could give me like a time frame of when you started doing the keto diet for yourself?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I've got a kind of personality that when I decide to do something, I go full on head first, and that's it. So Actually, the first change that I saw was months before. The consumption of the gluten that we have nowadays can actually make your insulin sensitivity even worse. So, and it can trigger a lot of autoimmune diseases. Thank God I haven't developed yet none of the autoimmune diseases, and I hope I'm not going to develop it now, because with the lifestyle that I follow now, I'm probably switching off all those genes. But in my family, for example, Hashimoto's is prevalent, but I haven't developed it, and I think I'm going to stay away from it. So I decided to go off gluten completely, and things started to change, but I was still high carb, because you can eat a lot of carbs not eating gluten. That doesn't make any difference. It was to go into a very strict keto to begin with, because I needed to see the change straight away. So I just woke up the following day and it was no carbs. And I maintain my carbs lower than 20 grams a day. So that will be on a strict ketogenic diet. Up the fats, of course, the good fats. And within 2 weeks of that, on the first week, of course, I saw my famous keto flu that you will see. It wasn't very strong in me. Actually, I was surprised, because with the amount of carbohydrates that I was used to eat, I was actually quite surprised that my keto flu wasn't that bad. I just had 3 to 4 days of exhaustion. I was just really sleepy, and I just wanted to go to bed and sleep. And I didn't want to go to the gym because I was very sleepy. So I slept for 4 days, and that was it. That was really it. Then I entered ketosis and stayed there since.
Really, the connection between PCOS and keto, it has to do with the insulin and insulin resistance that most women developed, right?
Absolutely. The PCOS is, at the end of the day, is the insulin resistance. What happens when you have insulin resistance? You have an elevated amount of insulin running through your body. If insulin is not a bad thing, again, we don't want to make people think that insulin is a bad thing and I have to cut insulin from my life. And it's a good thing. You need it to live. You need it to grow, makes your muscles grow, makes your bones grow. It's a good thing. Your body doesn't produce anything that is not good. But the problem is when it's elevated and it's constantly elevated. Insulin is only meant to be out in your body for a very limited period of time after you eat a carbohydrate, to take that sugar and put it inside of your cells. And then the insulin is meant to go down and not do anything else and never be up again until you next eat carbohydrates. And you shouldn't be eating carbohydrates from an evolutionary point of view, not in a very long time, because it's not normal that you're eating carbs 6 times a day, every day. Your body can deal with carbohydrates once in a while, and it will do it, and it will be fine. But the problem is when it's too much, it's constantly up, and it produces inflammation. And because it's a growth hormone, it also starts to produce growth in areas of your body where you start having cysts. And that's what happens as well with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. You start having cysts, very huge, big cysts. I'm not just talking about follicular cysts that are normal in every woman. No, I'm talking about ovaries that could be 2 to 3 to 4 times their actual size because of the effect of insulin. Insulin is making them grow. Insulin is making cysts grow. Insulin can make cysts grow in your breast. So that's something else. Insulin makes hair grow on your face. Insulin makes your skin become thicker. So you start having those dark patches in your skin. So that's the problem with the elevated insulin. And obviously, the elevated insulin makes you produce more free testosterone. And as we said before, more free testosterone means no ovulation. No ovulation means more free testosterone.
So what do you recommend to your clients when you see them and they have PCOS and they're really struggling?
The first thing, I have a protocol, is a 3-step protocol that I follow with all of them. Is the same one that I did in me. And I perfected it until now. I can recommend it to my clients or my patients, and they become better. The first thing is food. So the first step, because this is metabolic, the first thing is food. You need to remove what is causing the excess insulin. And the way you remove it is through diet. And the diet is low carb or ketogenic. That I've learned with time, Vanessa, that the way that I did it, that I went into a very strict ketogenic diet to begin with, I am not that strict anymore, and I can maintain my results no problem. I actually have carb ups every few days, because especially on my follicular phase of my cycle, because it helps me ovulate, and I'm still PCOS free, because as I said, your body can deal with a little bit of carbohydrates every now and then. So I've discovered that many women actually don't need to go into full ketosis, super hardcore like I did. Some of them, just by reducing a lot and to going into low carb, high fat, not necessarily ketone, and not necessarily they have to be in a ketosis state, they start to feel and see the difference. So first thing that I do in my protocol is food. It's kind of like the first step is like a 3-part step, which is food with exercise and also relaxation. So food obviously is the ketogenic, and is to improve your insulin sensitivity and to lower your insulin excess. The exercise then, many are like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to be like doing an hour every day. And I say, you don't need to. What I'm going to tell you to do are exercises is a kind of functional movement that you can do very easily, and is not going to the gym or anything if you don't want to, that is going to allow your body to become more insulin sensitive. Again, we want to become more insulin sensitive so we can deal with those carbohydrates better and not express PCOS symptoms. And then the third part of the first step is the relaxation, which can be as well things like yoga. It can be things like just walking around, having a walk, because that is going to calm down your adrenals. And your adrenals are very responsible as well for your hormones and for the amount of glucose that you produce. So with that, you get rid, or you take care of the insulin and the stress. Then the second step is a detox. And it's about detoxing your environment, because you know it as well as I do, Vanessa, that we're full of toxins so incredibly much in our environment, in the food we eat, in the cosmetics that we use, in the water we drink, that are full of things that disrupt our hormones and make us more prone to the PCOS and many other illnesses. And then finally, the third step of my protocol is to chart your cycles, to chart with the fertility awareness method that I teach as well, which is a scientific method, to optimize your cycles so you make sure that you ovulate every month, and that if you don't, you can do things to ovulate.
It really combines the most important things in terms of reducing insulin resistance, really getting rid of the carbs, the sugar, the gluten, the exercise, which is proven to restore insulin sensitivity, and relaxation, which is so important for us to lower cortisol and enable us to be in that ketogenic fat burning state. So that's a wonderful protocol.
Absolutely. I find it super useful. It serves me very well, it serves my patients really well. And the thing is that they recover that metabolic flexibility, where they can actually eat a little bit of good carbs, not the sugars and the gluten. I do not recommend it for anyone with PCOS, for anyone really, but especially with PCOS if we're dealing with that. But they can have their root vegetables, they can have their sweet potatoes, they can have their plantain chips, they can have tasty, good, healthy carbohydrates every now and then.
Why is it that women's cycles change when they first go keto and then maybe correct themselves after?
I'll tell you what, Vanessa, in reality, what I've observed over time is that it's not so related to the keto itself. It's to do with the fact that any changes in any important changes in your nutrition and your level of exercise, for example, cause an impact in your hormones, and that, of course, can affect your periods. So it's not the ketogenic state, it's not the ketosis itself, it's the fact that your body sees a massive change in what you're doing. It not necessarily means that it's bad, it just means that it's a change that is not accustomed to, and it needs to get back to regulate itself. It needs to say, oh, okay, this is happening, this is what it is right now. It's not a one-off thing. This girl is now eating this way. This girl is now exercising this and this way. Maybe this girl stopped doing chronic cardio if you were a chronic cardioer. And then that is going to affect you as well. It's not only the things that you do, but the things that you stop doing. This is very interesting. But we do have cycles that our cycles are around 21 to 35 days. In reality, the whole cycle of a woman takes 90 days, 3 months. So from the first time the egg that you're going to release in 3 months is being created today. So that means that anything that you do today is going to affect you for the next 3 months. And it's usually why 3 to 6 months it takes the body to regulate itself, because we have a very long hormonal cycle, whereas men have 24-hour cycles that are very easy to gauge.
The women that I work with is those that are post menopause suddenly get their period back. And they're like, what is going on?
I know. I've seen it again. It usually doesn't happen with women that have been postmenopausal for many years. So if you haven't had your period for 10 years, then it's very rare that you're going to recover it, that one day you're going to bleed. But in those women that maybe haven't bled for a year or two, they can have it back because they haven't fully transitioned into the keto. It doesn't necessarily mean they're ovulating again, because let's remember that the fact that you are bleeding doesn't mean that you have a period, that you are ovulating. It just means that you're bleeding. Your period doesn't mean that you're ovulating. Well, they say that after 2 years, you are actually postmenopausal.
But do a lot of your clients have
after
weight
1 year
issues
of no periods
when they have PCOS? And
6 months to a year.
Have you seen good results from them from going keto?
Completely, absolutely. Keep in mind that PCOS is an insulin resistant state, and anyone with insulin resistance will have problems with weight. Not some people, and I am one of those cases, some of us PCOS sufferers are what is called a lean PCOS, meaning that we never actually suffer from obesity. But it's the most common, more than 90% of women with PCOS will have problems with weight because they have insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, the insulin is a fat storing hormone. It's a growth hormone. It tells your body to grow and to grow fat storages as well. So you will grow those fat storages. Some of us don't go completely into obesity, and that makes things even more difficult to diagnose, because then doctors tell you don't have PCOS because you're not obese. Well, actually I do. It's just that not all the symptoms will be expressed. But for those of my patients that do have obesity or problems with overweight, or not even overweight, but they're a little bit over the limit, and they have problem with losing that weight, they do see a very, very remarkable change in that, and they become more normal. Their body starts to regulate. Let's remember that usually being obese or being overweight is not your fault. It's nothing to do with how much you move. It's nothing to do with how much you eat. It's to do with your hormonal state. And you could just eat one banana a day, and if you're having insulin resistance, you will put the weight on and you will not lose it. And you could be eating like Sam Feltham that did that test where he was eating 5,000 calories a day or more. And he didn't he actually lost weight because he's very insulin sensitive.
Right. It makes so much sense. Now, many women have something that's known as estrogen dominance, which is talked about a lot, but a lot of people don't know what it means. And it's really an excess of estrogen in the body. And a lot of women get this, and men get this too, because there are so many estrogens in our environment, from chemicals, from DEET, from our perfumes and makeups and lotions, like you said, and also in our food. And one of the things that I found so interesting since being in Europe for a good part of the last couple of years is that Europeans don't allow the growth hormone and estrogen to be added to animal food, so animal protein. So in North America, however, we have a ton of growth hormone and estrogen added to the animals to make them grow and mature and get fatter a lot quicker. And, obviously they're also being fed a lot of carbs, but a lot of the hormones end up in our bodies. And when there's too much estrogen, the estrogen can actually produce a lot of other symptoms. So your estrogens will act as endocrine disruptors in the body. And for example, estrogen can block the cell receptors for thyroid, for example. So you might have hypothyroid symptoms because you have too much estrogen. And I know you talked a bit in your talk about the importance of reducing those estrogens. So what do you recommend to people to do that?
This is one of the ones you will be surprised. But first of all, you tell the ladies you have to stop eating sugar, you have to stop eating carbs, and they go like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die!" And then you tell them, and you have to stop using makeup and using the expensive creams as well. And they just like literally, I don't know how they should slap me in the face. Their face is like, I'm gonna slap you in the face. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? You want me to become a cave woman and live like not even shave? Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. Like you said, Vanessa, all those chemicals, there are actually good brands. Like one of my favorites, and it's not, I have no relationship with them. Like it's just that I use them a lot. It's Veleda is the German one. Veleda.
Okay.
I think it's pronounced. It's very famous. I'm sure I'm just pronouncing it wrong. Because they don't use anything really that could be toxic or synthetic in the products. But also you can make your own products because, as you say, all of those can make you get estrogen dominance because they can act as estrogens in your body, and then they can wreak havoc in your body as well. They can do an excess of estrogen can be really, really problematic in your body. And also an excess estrogen will prevent ovulation even further. But the most amazing thing is that you might go to the doctor to get your estrogen tested, and then it comes as normal. But the thing is that estrogen excess is not only just having sky high levels of estrogen. It could also be that you're not ovulating, and therefore, if you're not ovulating, you're not producing progesterone. If you're not producing progesterone, then you, in a way, you have excess estrogen because you don't have the progesterone to counteract the estrogen. So it doesn't mean that your estrogen is through the roof. It just means that you don't have the progesterone to counteract the estrogen. So then you have an estrogen excess situation as well. So that's why not always, and I hate when people want to go by blood results, because blood results, unless you know how to interpret them, don't tell you anything. And most blood results and most labs have the normal ranges, and I'm making air quotes here, normal ranges at what is the normal ranges in the everyday person in the street. And if the everyday person in the street is sick, the normal ranges just means that you're sick like them.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're normal. You're sick as well. So don't worry. You're like everyone else. So absolutely. And I say, I mean, most of the expensive creams that we have to be ditched. Most of the, especially cleaning products in the house, get rid of those first. There is no cleaning products in my house. There is not the need of that kind of cleanliness. Where are we going, people? Please, what do we think we are? Do we think we are like pristine angels or something like that? We need to leave. I mean, it's not about being dirty. Actually, my house is very clean and very beautiful.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about not being germ obsessive when we have to kill every germ that is around. First of all, you can't kill every germ. And second of all, you're making yourself a disservice by doing that, because your immune system will be affected by the amount of chemicals. Not to talk about the amount of chemicals you're putting out in the environment, in the water. No, there is no chemicals in the house. Pure alcohol, if you have it available in your country, not every country can sell or sells pure alcohol, but pure alcohol, if you have it, is non-toxic and can be used to clean very nicely your kitchen, for example. And then white vinegar as well is very effective for that. And hot, how do you call it? Steam cleaner. Steam cleaners is just hot water that will kill any bacteria that need to be killed. Not every bacteria needs to be killed, and they will cut the grease and make everything like it should be. Actually clean, but not sterile. We're not going to make surgery here.
Right. And switching out some of the plastics for glassware.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't even trust plastic that says BPA free. Just no plastic as much as you can.
It's
no
not estrogen free.
Yeah, it's not estrogen free. That's correct. So all my containers in my kitchen are glass, and they're really good because you can also put them in the oven if you want. So it's from oven to fridge. So no problem. The straws that we use in my house are stainless steel. They're very nice because they're like rose gold, so they look very posh.
Ooh la la.
Oh la la. And all things like that. Just don't use plastic. Yeah, absolutely. Plastic's number one.
I love your love of posh things, like the beautiful crystal pens that you gave us.
Oh yeah, I do.
I saw your pen and I was like, this is my sister. I immediately was like, okay, we're going to get along.
I know. And I try to give everyone a pen that will go with their personality.
That's so
So,
sweet.
yeah.
And Ximena brought these beautiful pens and they had a giant sort of diamond at the end, and I was eyeballing it right away, and little did I know I was lucky to get one as a gift. But it's so beautiful. Now you got to have a little sparkle in your life every day.
Yes. A little bling bling, like Nika says, a little bling bling.
A little bling bling. You're so cute. Now, you're a fertility expert, and I'm super excited to talk to you about this because I have had several women on my program get pregnant, which is one of the most exciting, wonderful things. And I noticed this with a lot of other peers who work with women who've seen the same things. You know, I've had one woman who said we've been trying for 11 years. And one of the theories that I've read is that high carb diets and insulin resistance, high carb diets can produce a lot of androgens from the insulin and testosterone in the body, which can interfere with the hormones. So what are the main causes that you see lead to women struggling with getting pregnant?
First, like you said, and like we've been saying so many times here today, the excess insulin, the excess carbohydrates will make you not ovulate. And if you don't ovulate, then you can't get pregnant. And the fact, I'm going to repeat this because this is important, the fact that you are menstruating, the fact that you're having a period doesn't mean that you are ovulating. You can have a bleed every month and not menstruate and not ovulate for years. So that's number one. Number two is the pill. The pill, God.
Where do I get started?
oh my God. When I talk about the pill, I get attacked and I have to watch my mouth because I could actually put myself in danger to get sued by talking bad about the pill. But
right.
I'm not talking bad about it. Just I'm not actually lying or anything. I'm just saying a reality. And anyone who reads, if you open any box of the pill, you will see that inside is a freaking Bible, because the amount of side effects that you can have are so many that it's not just a one page thing. It's like a Bible. You have to sit down, make a coffee and read. And then if you decide to take that pill after you read that Bible, oh my God, off to you, my girl, because it's a lot of risk of all the secondary effects that it can have. And of course, the main thing that the pill does, what it does, is to shut down your hormones. I'm not making this up. I'm not talking bad about the pill. I'm just stating a fact. It shuts down your hormones and it gives you synthetic hormones instead. So that way you cannot ovulate and you cannot get pregnant. It's not surprising that when you stop the pill after many years taking it, or even after a few months taking it, your body is not ovulating because your body is being suppressed from ovulation. So that's another thing that affects ovulation and obviously affect your fertility as a woman. And another thing that I see happening is that it's not always the woman who's having problems with fertility, girls. Many times it's your man. Men have fertility problems too. Men are exposed to the estrogens in plastics as well, and in their shaving creams and in the products that they put on their skins. And therefore, they could be low testosterone and they could be not producing enough semen or no good quality semen. And sometimes it's not your fertility issue, girl. Sometimes it's your man's. And sometimes it's both of you.
Right.
So what happens is when the couple goes into the ketogenic lifestyle and the detoxing lifestyle, when I say to the girl, remove the cleaning products from your house, the husband is also getting the benefits of that. The man is also getting the benefits of no more chemicals in the house. When I say, girl, remove plastics from your house, and the girl goes and removes plastic from her house, the man is also getting the benefit of that. So even when he thinks he hasn't changed anything, he's actually doing something good for his own fertility. And if they're both doing the same thing, and then the man also does ketogenic, then suddenly they become pregnant because they're both
That's
affected by
amazing.
it.
And also, one thing we didn't mention was soy, because soy also is super estrogenic in the body. And one thing that was crazy, I remember reading this story about how there's so much estrogens in our environment that these crocodiles in Florida were unable to reproduce. They just stopped, the males just stopped being able to reproduce because they were so affected by this chemical plant that was nearby that was producing these estrogens.
I know. And also our oceans are suffering so much at the moment. For me, the ocean, I've always been very obsessed with the ocean. I have a very, very attachment to it. I don't know why, it must come from somewhere, but it makes me suffer a lot, the way that oceans are suffering. And right now, the balance between male and female fish is very, very dysregulated. There's many, 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 many more female fish than male fish, and it has to do with this as well. So it's very, very important that we look at that. And when I say stop the chemicals, stop all the craziness, it affects our oceans, and life comes from the oceans. And then what you said about soy as well, soy, and for example, vegans and vegetarians base their protein in soy, and so they're eating a lot of soy, which is very disruptive to the female cycle. And then they are most vegans are having problems with periods. They either don't have periods, or they're not ovulating, or they're having very problematic periods because the amount of soy that they're eating.
And one thing soy is amazing because it shows up in so many things, especially those nutrition bars and protein bars. Soy is one of the most subsidized crops, and corn and soy are not only subsidized, but they're all GMO. So that's one of the main reasons you have to avoid it. And I just want to mention, while we're on the topic, that wild caught fish, you're talking about the sea. If you are eating farmed fish, and I didn't realize the connection to this before, but if you're eating fish to get your healthy fats balanced, it has to be wild caught source, because if you're eating farmed fish, there's so many chemicals in it that you're going to negate all the positive effects of eating that fish because there's so many chemicals in it.
Absolutely. And also the balance, what I was going to say, the balance between the omega-3 and the omega-6, it's hugely disrupted as well. So you're eating more of the omega-3 when you wanted to be eating more of the omega-6.
Absolutely. If you had a friend who came to you tomorrow and said, Ximena, my husband and I are trying to get pregnant, and he's been all checked, he's fine, his sperm count is great, everything, it's me, what would you tell her in order to get the best results as soon as possible for her fertility and to get pregnant?
So the first thing is, we need to know if she's ovulating or not. If we are sure, I will still look at the husband, because as we said before, what tests say doesn't mean that you're healthy. It just means that you are like everyone else. So I will still look at the husband, and I will still treat the husband, because husbands males don't live in a different universe to us. They live still in universes that are full of estrogens, that are full of disruptors, that are full of plastics, that are full of hormones. So I normally treat both of them, because they don't live in a parallel universe where nothing of this exists. They're affected too. But then the woman, what she needs to do is she needs to find out if she is ovulating or not. Most probably she's not. And the only way to know if she's ovulating is by doing the fertility awareness method, which is what I teach, which is a scientific method. This is not a woo-woo kind of like rhythm method that our grandmothers used to follow. This is a scientific method that will teach you a lot about your own fertility, that will teach you if you are ovulating or not without the need for expensive tests or anything. You can do it in your own home every day, and you will learn if you're ovulating or not. Once we learn if she's ovulating, she's probably not ovulating because she's not getting pregnant. then we can find the source of her not ovulating. But also, what the FAM method is going to teach us, it's she might actually be a late ovulator, because there is a myth that every woman ovulates on day 14 of their cycles, and this is BS. I'm sorry, but this is massive BS. So many things can happen during the follicular phase of your cycle, which is the first phase from your period until the day you ovulate, that can delay the ovulation. And maybe even you're just born a late ovulator and you ovulate on day 21 or even day 25, or something happens in your life, you take a travel or you get ill and you ovulate late that month. If you think that because someone told you that you ovulate on day 14, and then on day 14 you start having sex with your partner trying to get pregnant, but you don't ovulate until day 25, girl, you're not getting pregnant because you're not timing it well. And so many times I see this, which frustrates me, when a couple is diagnosed infertile or with fertility issues just because they've been trying to get pregnant for a year, when in reality what's going on is that they were timing it badly. She was a late ovulator and she was having sex way too early in the cycle, so she wasn't getting pregnant. As soon as she learns that she ovulates on day 25, she starts having sex on day 21, then suddenly she becomes pregnant. No problem, no drugs, no nothing necessary.
That's amazing that they would be told that they're infertile. So do you have any tools that you recommend to people, such as fertility apps or cycle apps or ovulation apps?
I don't, because I don't trust that. Normally, those apps are only based on your temperature. So some apps, you can just take your temperature every morning and it will tell you if you are fertile or not, or if you have ovulated or not. But that's just one part of the equation. The equation goes in three. It's your temperature, it's the quality and quantity of your cervical fluid, and it's the position and feel of your cervix, which you can touch yourself every day very easily, no problem. If you remember, I taught that during Keto Ladies. And so this is the only way, by doing those three things, that you can learn if you're actually ovulating and if you're fertile or not. So the apps will only tell you one thing. They will only tell you your temperature, but you need to have the other two to confirm your ovulation. So I recommend the apps. I recommend an app that will help you just input your data, but you have to learn, and it's not difficult. I teach this. I teach FAM method, and it's not difficult to learn it and to input your data, and it's going to give you such an insight into your health. Because girls, ovulation is not just to make babies. Ovulation is a health insurance. If you ovulate, you will have strong and good health. So you need to ovulate even if you don't want to have children.
That's a great tip for people, because even if, pregnancy or conception might not be in their future, it's still just all about optimizing your health. That's one of the things I love the most about keto, is you want to have optimal health. I mean, you're living in this incredible body. You and I were talking about how much our bodies do for us, these trillions of little cells. What did you call them?
Minions.
The little minions that are like working on our behalf. And
yes.
I love that post that you did about how so many women feel betrayed by their own bodies. And it's really not that our bodies are betraying us. It's just that we're not giving them what they need. And that's why keto is so revolutionary. And it's been, for myself and for so many people, this journey of self-love. Every keto meal that I put together, to me, is love for my body. And it's been amazing to be aligned with it instead of fighting it.
Absolutely. You don't have to fight your body. Your body is not your enemy. Your body is your best friend. And as I said before, your body actually wants to be healthy more than you want to be healthy, because it's hard-coded in their DNA. The only reason why your body exists is to be healthy and to live and to be good. So it wants it even more than you. And the proof is that when you actually give it what it needs, in just 2 weeks, you can reverse years of damage.
It's amazing how quickly it responds, and I just think it's so cool to see how much your body can actually thrive. I had no idea. I thought that waking up with a headache every day was just one of those things you have to deal with, or having low energy, having fatigue, feeling uncomfortable in my body. I thought that these things were just part of life for me. I had kind of resigned myself to them, but to live and see, wow, what your body can do when you're actually giving it the essential fats, the essential amino acids, what it can be like to feel in the body. I mean, I wouldn't give it up for anything. And it's so incredible to see, wow, how sharp your brain can actually get. I mean, they talk about how we only use a small percentage of our brain, but I'm pretty sure on keto, we use a lot more of it, because your brain is made of fat, it needs those healthy fats.
Yes. And so are all your hormones. They need fat to be made, otherwise you're not making them. So women really need to stop being afraid of fat. And I'm talking good fats. I'm not talking vegetable oils. I'm not talking about margarine. I'm talking about animal fats. I'm talking about what do you call
lard.
it? Lard. I'm talking about butter. I'm talking about the fatty parts of your meat. If you're buying quality meat, go and eat that fat. It tastes amazing. Oh my God, how can it taste so good? There is a reason why we like it so much. It's because it's good for us.
I feel the same way. And I always say to Pete, my husband, there's a reason why honey is protected by bees. You reach your hand in there and you're going to get stung. I mean, isn't that nature telling you something? It's like, stay away from you. Whereas fats, it's really where all the flavor lies. And there has to be a reason for why that flavor is there. And it's to tell us to eat more of it. And, I mean, you could probably make the same argument for sugar, but that's really because of survival. It comes back to survival and our need for fast energy in a different environment when you're running away from predators all the time.
Yeah, but it's also because sugar produces changes in your brain that fat doesn't. So sugar is not a food. Sugar is a substance that it's very toxic, very dangerous. And I always say, by any circumstances, should it be given to children? Please stop seeing sugar and sugary treats as an innocent, cute thing that now, like, we are very close to Easter now, and you see all those Easter eggs and Easter bunnies, and they're all chocolate. And yesterday I was at the local Tesco, the supermarket, and there was a lady promoting those Easter eggs to a freaking 2-year-old that obviously doesn't have a power to decide what's good or bad for him. And she was like, look at this Easter egg. Do you want it? How many do you want? How many are you going to ask your mom to buy you? And bless her, like, she doesn't know she's doing something wrong, but we need to start seeing this the same way that we would see someone offering cigarettes to a 2-year-old.
I completely agree. And I think that, we look at cold and flu season as being a winter thing. When you look at the holidays, you start off with Halloween. And I remember as a kid, Halloween was my favorite because, I mean, a pillowcase of candy and I could go crazy, and I was a major candy addict. But you have that, and you have Thanksgiving, and you have Christmas, and you have Valentine's Day, and you have Easter. And every single one of those has been so corrupted to candy and sugar and chocolate. And, it's not that you can't have those treats, but you look at the incidence of cold and flu, and when you realize how much sugar depletes the immune system, and then, we spend a lot of time indoors with all those cleaning chemicals, and it's no surprise to me that people get colds and flu in the winter, and it's not the temperature. I haven't had a cold in years.
The last time that you had a cold?
I haven't had a cold in years, and I feel weird when I tell people, because people give me this weird look like I'm making it up. I'm like, I literally haven't had a cold or flu in years, and
we take cold showers and we go out in the cold and nothing happens to us.
Nothing. That's amazing that you've had that experience too, because it's not that you can't enjoy treats. I personally gave up sweeteners last May. It's been almost a year, but I still make treats. I still have dark chocolate. I like to have 100% dark chocolate, but with whipped cream and a little bit of Greek plain yogurt, and all those things are super, super delicious. They're still treats for me. But it's not that you can't have those things. I've been posting all these yummy Easter recipes that you can make, my keto peanut brittle and spiced pecans and cheesecake. And, you can still have
the cheesecake in your book.
You can still have those treats, right? But
what a dream.
Yeah, but I mean, to be, rewarding all the time ourselves and children with it, I think it's going to make such a huge impact for people, to be able to make the connection between those two, because I fully agree. But it's really hard to do. And I talk about this sometimes with other keto friends is, what am I going to do when we have children and Halloween and Easter rolls around? Because, you can maybe not have those things, but maybe the school will have it or their friends will have it. So, what do? Like, you pack up your bags and go away on vacation when those holidays come around. I mean, it's really, really difficult, as well-meaning and as well-intentioned as you are as a parent, to prevent your children from having that, because it's just everywhere.
You can't prevent them, but during Keto Ladies, I asked Bitten Johnson. She's for those of you who don't know her, she's the absolute expert on sugar addiction. She's the expert on addiction. She treats the addictive brain, and she explained in Keto Ladies how every addiction starts with sugar addiction in the infancy. And it's very interesting. I very recommend that everyone follow her and find out about her, because she's absolutely incredible.
She is.
And I asked her, would it make a difference if a child gets a later exposure to sugar rather than an earlier one? And she said, absolutely. Obviously, you can't prevent the child to eventually go to school and be exposed to sugar. Hopefully, one day, sugar will be seen as drugs, and the child will never be exposed to it. But in the meantime, in the world that we live nowadays, your child is going to be at home with you for maybe a couple of years before he goes out in the world. Well, for those years that he's going to be at home with you, where he's going to do only what you do for him, and he's going to eat only what you give him to eat or her to eat, then don't expose them to sugar
Such
at
a
all.
good point. Such a good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Make it as late as possible, so their brain has a chance to develop other frontal cortex doesn't develop until you are 25. So anything you do before 25, you're pretty much screwed. But
yeah,
if you can make it later, not at 1, not at 2, but maybe at 3 or 4 years old, it's gonna make a difference.
That's such a great point. It's such a great point that you're saying. Now, we should wrap things up. Probably, I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours.
Oh yeah,
because we're both so freaking passionate. But I love all the great information that you shared. So I just want to say, if you could put a billboard, this is a Tim Ferriss quote, but if you could put a billboard out there for all women who have any PCOS, any fertility issues, what would it say?
I have it. I know it. And it will be, are you ovulating? That's exactly what it would say.
That's so good. That's so good.
That will get into the whole thing.
Yes. And what do you think is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions that women don't realize about your cycle? I think what you said about the ovulation, being maybe at a different time than people realize is really key.
Yeah, that is the key main misconception, is that every woman in the world has 28-day cycles with ovulation on day 14. Every woman, like we are the moon, that is 28 days exactly. And if you fall short or long of that date, then you have a problem. During Keto Ladies, one of the ladies, lovely girl, very young, beautiful lady, she came to me and she asked me, Ximena, I think I have a problem. She was very diligent. She had been tracking her cycles, tracking the duration of her cycles, not necessarily tracking her fertility, but just knowing when she had her period, and so she will know the length of her cycles for many, many months. And she came to me and she says, I think I have a problem with my fertility because look, and I looked at her records and I say, I couldn't see any problem. And I say, why do you think you have a problem? She says, well, look, because sometimes I have 26 days and sometimes I have 29 days and sometimes I have 30. And I say, that's totally normal. I say, a normal cycle goes between 21 and 35 days. So it doesn't mean that if you don't have a 28-day cycle, doesn't mean that you are unhealthy. And if you're not ovulating on day 14, but on day 20, totally normal. And also ovulation can be delayed because of things that are happening in your life, because ovulation gets delayed by you being ill, by you traveling, by you having a surprise party, but you being drunk. So absolutely, the biggest misconception is 28 days cycles with ovulation on day 14.
It's so good to know that the first part of your cycle can really be affected by stress, by travel. I really think that's so important for people to know. You've shared so much incredible knowledge with our listeners today. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's just such a privilege to have you here sharing all your knowledge. And where can people find you? You're based in London, but where can people find you there and online?
Thank you so much, Vanessa. For me, it's such an honor to be here. I'm so excited to have connected with you all during Keto Ladies and being in your podcast. I'm so happy. And if you want to find me, I do everything online. I'm bringing the message mainly in Spanish because, believe it or not, I'm pretty much the only person talking about this in Spanish. So I thought I need to do a service of my Hispanic community because they really need the good information. There's not many people. But obviously, I do speak English and I can do everything in English. And I'm working little by little to translate most of the most important things that I do into English. So my fertility awareness method course is being translated into English.
Yay!
And some of my the parts of my website as well. My main website is called functionalfemaleforce.com. Right now, as we are recording, is under maintenance, but it's going to be re-released very, very soon with everything renovated. Functionalfemaleforce.com, but you can find me as well on my most active media, which is Instagram, and you can find me as at @dfunctionalforce.
Awesome. Well, be sure to follow Ximena. She does so many informative posts about fertility, hormones, PCOS, everything that has to do with keto. And we'll definitely have to do a round 2 of this because it's just been such a blast. I've had so much fun chatting with you, and you just have so much great knowledge and information to share with people.
I love it. Thank you so much. I love being here. I love talking about this, and I don't want to bore people, but I can talk hours.
I don't think that's possible, but I think we've had a lot of fun and it's been such a blast. So thanks for being here, and we'll chat soon and have you back on soon.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Besos.
Besos. That was today's episode of Fast Keto with Ximena. She was so amazing, so much fun to chat with, and I always learn so much from her. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that deep dive into keto and hormonal health, fertility, PCOS. Wow, we really covered quite a bit. Be sure to check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge if you're interested in trying out keto for yourself. It is a great program for beginners and for more advanced ketoers, and I include 28 days of meal plans, shopping lists, a guide to testing yourself for ketosis, interpreting the results, and I also have my free members group where I do all the support and coaching. You can post any question at all that comes to mind about keto, and I am there supporting you and answering your questions. It's a fantastic way of getting into ketosis if you've struggled, if you've been trying to get the results that you want and you're not seeing them. I'm here to guide you. So check it out at ketogenicgirl.com. That's www.ketogenicgirl.com. And it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. I can't wait to join you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to give the podcast a rating and review. I would love to hear what you think. And as Fast Keto is still a brand new podcast, it's so wonderful to get reviews from super listeners like you. So thank you so much if you take the time to do that. Thanks in advance. I hope that you have a great Easter holiday. We are preparing some delicious keto foods this weekend from my cookbook, and I'm also deep frying duck in my deep fryer with duck fat, and deep frying Brussels sprouts with bacon, which is one of the recipes that I do all the time from Keto Essentials, and making lots of yummy sides, delicious sauerkraut and gravy, and it's going to be a keto-tastic Easter. So I hope that you also check out some of my Easter desserts and treats and other holiday meals. It's all under my Instagram and Facebook. So wishing you guys a very, very happy Holy Week and Easter weekend. I hope you enjoy the long weekend, get some rest, do some de-stressing, yoga, walking, all that good stuff to keep you in a fat-burning state. And till next week, wishing you guys a fat-fueled week. Bye for now. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions that may pose risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician if you have this condition or others. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian before beginning any kind of new diet or exercise regimen. Under no circumstances shall the host here, any guests or contributors to the podcast, any employees, associates, or affiliates of Ketogenic Girl be responsible for damages arising from the use of this podcast. If you do not agree, do not listen to this podcast.